Hello, Stellar Honeys, and welcome to this very impromptu yet bonus episode of the Cosmic Hotline. I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I felt the energy building as the Pisces lunar eclipse is on its way. That will be your horoscope of the day for tomorrow. However, I started to really reflect on all of the themes and patterns and everything that's been manifesting over the last 6 to 12 months. And then also, why is this lunar eclipse so significant as to how the themes that are showing up for you right now will start to transpire, and they will be big themes that you'll move through in 2025 and beyond. And so I decided to do something completely on a whim today. I grabbed out my tripod, I grabbed out my camera, and I just sat down in front of my camera and hit record. And lo and behold, I am so out of touch because I am always here with you on the Cosmic Hotline that I did not realize that Instagram do not like long form content. And I'd actually recorded the video for Instagram, but what I've decided to do, because I cannot post it there, is I've extracted the audio and I'm going to be sharing it with you now on the Cosmic Hotline. So please bear in mind, this was intended for people to interact with. I know that's really hard for you to do when you listen to it through a podcast format. If you are listening on Spotify, though, you can add comments. So please, if you feel the desire to interact with me there, you absolutely can do so. Otherwise, loop back to me on Instagram or wherever you prefer to connect with me. So I hope that this episode / insights / messages lands for you today, and I will see you on the other side. All I can say is, wow, we have been navigating so much astrologically over the last 6 to 12 months. And with this Pisces full moon lunar eclipse incoming, which is so magical, but it's also going to be very insightful as to how 2025 unfolds, I thought I would take the opportunity to sit down with you and give you some insight as to what's going to be unfolding and what to look out for during this eclipse, but also all of the transits that are impacting this lunation, because we've really been experiencing some huge shifts, and some of them are first in our lifetime as well and never to be experienced again. So I connect with so many different people, and I'm so lucky because no two people are the same, no two conversations are the same. But there has been a very key reoccurring theme over the last 12 months, and it's been that we're all searching for greater meaning and purpose in our lives. We're all looking to create a life that gives us a sense of fulfillment. And I really bring that down to one of these key players in our story, which is Saturn. And Saturn has been in Pisces since last year. Saturn will be in Pisces until 2026. But Saturn's in the middle of its journey, and this represents an ending cycle in itself. I refer to Saturn in Pisces as an invitation to keep the promises that we make to ourselves. So whether it's been that you have always wanted to write a book, or maybe you wanted to commit to a yoga practice, maybe there's a spiritual dimension that you're wanting to bring into your daily life, or whether it's creativity. But it's about the stories you tell yourself and the promises that you want to keep to yourself. And so there is a lot of self in that story. And when I mean self-trust, self-expression, self-esteem, self-efficacy, self-worth. It's about knowing that you're deserving of what you want. And that's why so many people have come to me, asking about their purpose or their destiny or what they're here to fulfill, because there's a real call to that. And Saturn puts pressure on us as well, because Saturn is a planet of discipline and authority. Pisces is about flow and the subconscious mind. So it's about, blending and bridging those two worlds. And so that story for us is still playing out. But it's so prevalent in this story purely because we've got a lot of Piscean energy happening right now, including this lunar eclipse. But the other thing that's been happening is we have Neptune that rules Pisces in modern day astrology. And Neptune's been sitting at 29 degrees this year. And anytime a planet is at 0 or 29 degrees, we really feel it affects the most, because when it just enters the cycle at 0 degrees, it represents the beginning of that story, whereas when it's at 29 degrees, it represents the end. And with Neptune at 29 degrees, it's inviting us and encouraging us to actually figure out what is on our heart and where is our heart guiding us. And to just make things even more exciting, because if you tune into my podcast, The Cosmic Hotline, I say this a lot, whereas the universe ain't playing, it likes to spice things up and keep us on our toes. We've also had Pluto, the planet of rebirth, death, birth, transmutation. I always say Pluto's our planet of power and empowerment. How do we step into our personal power? Pluto has moved into Aquarius. It's just dipped back into Capricorn at the moment because it's in its retrograde cycle. As soon as it moves back into Aquarius in the coming months, it's going to be staying in this sign until 2043. And we have not experienced this energy since the 1700s, which is huge because this really represents internal revolution for us individually, but also collective revolution for us globally. So there's going to be so much change and a breaking down of structures that are no longer serving us, and they will serve the greater good, but it's going to be a long journey because of that planetary cycle. So the reason I wanted to give you some of this context is that might speak volumes to where you're at right now. So for some of you, I know that you're thriving, you're figuring out where you want to go, and you're putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and now it's about having the courage to step forward. And for some of you, you still don't know what that dream life looks like. You're still feeling like there's some confusion because of that. And the reason why, paying attention to what's dropping in for you today or tomorrow. So, everyone has a different relationship with their spirituality and also their relationship with self. So for some of you, that may look like a meditation practice. For some of you, that may look like a journaling practice. I don't mind or care really how you connect with yourself, but what's so important is you create some breathing space to do it. Because through my own experience and some of the people that I connect with that I always think are great examples, they have the busy, thriving company, the huge career, they're juggling a million things. You can't create clarity with clutter. So the breathing space is so integral because it helps you to gain perspective. It's like when you make a decision and you have so much happening in your life and you kind of have that emotional response and you want to get it over and done with because you can move on to the next thing. That's never necessarily a good place to make decisions from. And I'm not judging because I have been there as well. But to give yourself some breathing space. And eclipses, the energy lasts 30 days before, that's when it starts to build from the first eclipse. And this is our first eclipse in a series. And then 30 days after that second eclipse. So whether it's today, tomorrow, sometime over the next week, you have got time to lean in and pay attention to what is actually coming up for you. So let's kind of get into the nitty-gritty of this eclipse, because there's a few things that will help you to anchor into this energy so you can choose how you want to respond to the frequency, and then how to pay attention to the subtle cues and how they may unfold in 2025. So eclipses are related to the lunar nodes in astrology, and the nodes are mathematical calculations. You have the lunar nodes in your natal chart, which is your soul's blueprint. So you have a south node and you have a north node. When we experience eclipses, we have a lot of collective themes unfolding as well as individual. So from your natal chart perspective, it's a very individual journey you're going on. So your south node is your past life influence. If you're not into past lives, think of it as your comfort zone, maybe some karmic energy you're bringing into this lifetime. I always say it's like what you have a spiritual diploma in. An astrologer called Stephen Forrest always refers to it as that, and I just love that because it makes you realize that the South Node energy in this lifetime is really important. Like it's something you've mastered, so you don't need to sit in that frequency anymore. Whereas your North Node is your purpose. And purpose isn't always our vocation. Sometimes it's something we're here to master in this lifetime. It's our destiny. It's the energy we're being invited to step into. But because our South Node feels really comfortable, that's why it can sometimes feel really out of reach, our purpose or what we're here to learn in this lifetime. And because the nodes are related to eclipses in astrology, the eclipses we've experienced over the last 12 months have related to the Aries-Libra axis. And it's purely because that's where our nodal story is right now. We have the South Node in Libra and the North Node in Aries. So there is this real push-pull energy between trying to let go of codependent relationships or even reassess our relationships versus looking at how do we be more bold and audacious, courageous and brave? And how do we find the sweet spot between the two? Because if I think of in psychology with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, love and belonging is really a part of our ascension as a human being. We need to be a part of community. We need to have great people around us. And so it's about making sure we have the right people around us as well. And I think with all this Piscean energy, there has been sometimes some illusion or disillusionment between, what kind of support do we need to move forward? So that's to kind of give you the long-winded version of that. But this eclipse is in Pisces and the nodal axis is going to be moving. Hasn't moved yet, but the North Node is going to be moving into Pisces and the South Node is going to be in the constellation of Virgo. And so the themes that are showing up right now are really pertinent to what's going to start to transpire into 2025 moving into 2026, which is why I invited you to pay attention to those subtleties that are coming in. Like what's on your heart? What keeps dropping in? What are the things that you just are struggling to let go of? Because they're going to give you some insight as to where you should follow your heart. And because when you follow your heart, you follow your destiny. And that's going to be a big theme during this eclipse. And there's a few key things that I wrote down based on the transits here. And also I'm looking at the natal chart as well for tomorrow's eclipse, if you're wondering what I'm looking at as well. I'm such a visual person, so I find it so good for me when I'm looking at the chart to see like, oh, that's what I was going to share with you too. So when we have a full moon, the sun and moon are in opposition. So we have the sun in Virgo right now, and then we have the moon in Pisces. It's really interesting though, because the moon is only 3 degrees away from Neptune. So it's conjunct Neptune at the moment. It's 10 degrees away from Saturn. We still have some Saturn influence in there as well. But we also have Mercury in Virgo opposite Saturn in Pisces, which is interesting. And I wanted to touch on this. And we also have Venus in Libra, which is opposite Chiron in Aries. And then, just to make things interesting, we have the moon. It is separating, but it's still a 5-degree orb. We have the moon in Pisces squaring off with Jupiter in Gemini. So there's actually a lot of energy here at play. But the first thing that came to mind when I was looking at this chart was feel, don't overthink. I think with so much Virgo energy is that, and especially with having the sun in Virgo and Mercury in Virgo right now, there's an element of intellectualizing things. I'm going to think my way through this. how can I make logical sense of what's happening? Maybe you're getting an intuitive response, but for whatever reason, you're questioning that intuition. You're trying to rationalize it. But this eclipse is really calling you to actually figure out, like, how do I feel? And that's why I keep coming back to this term, like, where is my heart guiding me? Because our heart is related to how we feel about things. And it's okay to feel your way through this eclipse. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, but it's also the most intuitive sign of the zodiac. And it's related to our subconscious mind as well. And what that can do is it can kind of blur the lines between imagination and reality, and especially because it's conjunct Neptune as well. So there is an element of dissolving boundaries that's unfolding right now. And I think that if you're trying to force things through logic, it's going to make it feel harder. And I know sometimes for myself, I have a really big Neptune influence in my chart this year. And it's what I found has been really useful for me if you're finding that you're in a place of confusion or uncertainty, or you just feel like there's something that you want to question right now. Questioning is a really great thing with Neptune too. By the way, invoking curiosity, having a beginner's mindset, as I've gone to places that give me perspective. And for me, that's reading. Reading gives me perspective. I read about things, and so it's not like I'm having an educational, personal development session with a rah-rah coach, but I find those epiphanies drop in when I'm in a place of solitude and I'm reading about something that's completely unrelated to my life. And so go to the places where you can gain perspective. And that could be a conversation with friends, or that could be going and listening to a great song or a great playlist, or maybe it's picking up some pencils and just drawing, just something to kind of figure out and widen your peripheral is what I would say, because clarity in my eyes with this Neptune influence will come between blending reality with your imagination. It's like, how do you align your head versus heart? And how do you question those rigid thought patterns that may be dropping in for you as well? And so whether it's exploring something creative or doing something a little bit spiritual, that will help you to find a thread first and then figure out which one to pull. But as I mentioned before, we've also got Mercury in Virgo opposite Saturn in Pisces. And that can mean too that that sometimes our thought processes, because Mercury rules our thoughts, it's our communication, whereas Saturn is all about our responsibility and looking at things logically as well. And I think especially with these two, it does really speak to taking that step back, which is very Piscean, and also critically evaluating. It could be asking yourself, like, where am I holding myself back? Where am I dimming my light? Where am I not giving myself permission to shine? Where am I self-sabotaging in my life? And a question, and I am posing this on the podcast this week as well, if you tune in for one of our daily horoscopes, is this concept of what if. Because I think sometimes we know and we can recognize our patterns, but it can be really hard to remove ourselves from them. And that's purely because if it was easy to create new neural pathways in the brain based on our subconscious mind, we'd all be doing it. But asking ourselves, what if this could be the best day of my life? What if I allowed the space for an epiphany to drop in? What if I could receive an email today that changed the course of my life? It opens up the potentiality, but also the possibilities. And so it's playing with those frequencies and moving into a different emotional state, which I always say is that high vibrational frequency. So it's something to think about as well, because if you are having any doubts or you're feeling really confused right now, know that clarity always comes from decisive and grounded decisions. And so take that step back before you step forward. and that may help you to seek a new perspective. Now, I do need to bring up relationships. It's such a big theme in the stars. It has been for such a long time. But also too, like we have Venus in Libra opposite Chiron in Aries, and anything in partnership is likely to come to the surface. It could be past hurts. It could be something that somebody did in 1995. There's so many things that can unfold during eclipses because they're really agents of change. They are opening and closing door moments. Somebody can just pop back in from the past unexpectedly, but you never know. That could give you closure, or it could be an opportunity for forgiveness, but it also could be something that's happening in your own relationships as well. Maybe it could be with one of your best friends who you've got no conflict with, but for whatever reason something comes up and it just deepens your bond together. But this does really speak to finding your own voice and self-worth in partnership. So if you have been going through some relationship challenges, whether you're single or in a relationship, I really think it's important to look at these things rather than hide from them, because Neptune, even though Neptune right now is at 28 degrees because it's in retrograde, we still have its influence here. Pisces also too. It can make you want to escape reality. It can make you stay scrolling online rather than actually implementing in your own life. So you're consuming without action. It can mean, I know that this relationship is challenging, but if I ignore it, that those actions from my partner, it might go away. Or maybe if I just manifest that my child is going to have a turnaround tomorrow, it's going to happen. It's kind of not like that with this energy. And so it's really important to take radical responsibility, but to look at how you can heal yourself, but also maybe offer up an olive branch to somebody else in this situation. But be really mindful too, because I know for some of you as well, you probably give too much of yourself already. And I don't think that 50-50 in partnership is actually real, in the sense of, and I'm going to give you some context to that. I always say, like, you have to find people that can meet you halfway, but sometimes that halfway mark changes based on where you're at in your lives. And I love what Brene Brown says, and she mentioned this on the Tim Ferriss show, where like partnership, it's bullshit. It's not 50-50. It's that you have to figure out how you have 100% together. Sometimes you're going to have 80%, and that means your partner probably has 20%, or your friend or your child or whoever the people are in your life, and you have to just pick it up because you have that 80%. But there's other times where you're going to have less, and that person's going to need to contribute, and you have to figure out, how do we have this 100% together? And so yeah, think about relationships. If you are single and you're not having any relationship conflict at the moment, figure out what you're looking for in a relationship. What are those green flags that you're after, and how can you make those a priority, or put yourself in situations so you can find those green flags rather than the red ones, because we totally want to avoid those. But a question you could ask yourself is when it comes to your relationships, just to kind of widen out before we zoom in again, is like, where am I giving too much of myself? You might be giving too much of yourself to your workplace, your career, to your partner. Maybe you might not even be giving too much, like you're not giving enough to yourself. You have to figure out, where is there a skewed perception of reality in my life right now, and how do I close that gap so that my energy is spread evenly, but also that you're still protecting your peace, because it's very important during this time. And to kind of give you like one more taste with what we've got with Jupiter's influence here, with the moon and Pisces square Jupiter, is like Jupiter and Gemini has been a trip this year. And I was so excited because Gemini rules my 10th house, which is public image and career. Jupiter hasn't been in my 10th house in 12 years. I was really excited about it. And I remember I was like 2 weeks in, and I was like, oh, this feels like a lot. And I think because Jupiter is the planet of expansion, abundance, and luck. And Gemini is all about curiosity, freedom, flexibility, adaptability. It's about like having your hands in all the honey pots. And I love it because Gemini energy always like teaches us to embrace like when something's past its expiry date. But with this Jupiter energy, Jupiter being this planet of luck and expansion, it can mean that we're faced with so many options. We actually don't know what option is worth taking. And with so many options, it means that we can procrastinate or fritter away our time and energy. And that is not a good thing. And so there is an element here, and this is where we can lean on the Virgo energy right now of discernment, right? What is actually worth my time and energy right now? Rather than getting swept up in things, because Gemini energy can be a little bit like I'm chasing the next shiny thing because I think it's going to give me the windfall that I'm looking for. But this can bring up a lot of tension because squares are like, I call them like roadblocks. They're like speed bumps. They slow you down so you can speed back up again, essentially. And again, it kind of speaks to this head versus heart energy, because Pisces requires emotional depth. It requires you feeling into things. Whereas Jupiter and Gemini is like, I want to expand my mental horizons. And this can actually be really interesting for some of you, maybe confronting, because a lot of emotional and intellectual growth is required right now. It's about how do you expand your mental plane with actually not losing touch with how you feel, right? It's that beautiful blend of both. And so how I view this particular transit is find expansion through vulnerability. Open up your heart, crack it wide open, and lean in to what you're feeling for this particular lunation. So I've just given you a lot of information. I normally don't give information in this long format either. It's been a very long time since I've done this, but it felt really important for me to share some of the things that have been unfolding over the last 6 to 12 months and how this eclipse will really paint a picture for what energy will be unfolding and incoming for you moving into 2025. There's one thing I want to touch on before I wrap up is I think it's really important, especially because astrology and spirituality and the search for meaning that we're all going on right now in different aspects of our lives means that we're all so much more interested in it, and we're trying to figure out who we are in this process. But everything in astrology is duality. And you've probably heard me say a few times the word frequency. As I always say that to people, nothing is good or bad in astrology. Our perception is reality. And especially as astrologers, we have to be really mindful that our biases or what we're navigating isn't projected onto the person that we're reading for or the forecast that we're giving. But I always say that everything is on a spectrum. You cannot have day without night. You cannot have black without white. You cannot have the moon without the sun, right? There is polarity and duality to everything. And saying that though, I always say like we have low vibrational energy and high vibrational energy. You get to choose how you respond to the frequency. You get to choose what vibration you want to step into. The low vibrational energy of this Pisces eclipse is codependence, escapism, disillusionment, self-sabotage. You get to choose if that's a part of your story. The high vibrational expression is my favorite for this particular energy. It is higher self energy. It is choosing your higher self. It is it is stepping into the divine. It's playing in the realm of what's on your heart, what's sitting in your subconscious mind. It really is a call to step into a frequency that you might find at first feels a little bit scary, but essentially you know in your heart it's for the greater good. So take some time out over the next couple of days or even over the next week. And if you are playing around with your natal chart, have a look and see, do you have any planets in Pisces? What house is governed by Pisces as well? This eclipse is at 25 degrees of Pisces. So if you are down with the absolute degrees in your natal chart, then that is what you want to look for as to where that will sit. And do you have like anything significant in that sign? And is there anything that is coming up for you that you may need to dig into more based on what I've shared today? So I'm sending so much love to you. I hope that this eclipse is enlightening, and please, if you have any insights or anything that drops in based on what I've shared, please drop it down below.